Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Devin, Hasson, and Chris Jackson. Gentlemen, just so the viewers can verify that you are in fact on this Zoom call as we're recording it, say hello.
Yes, hello from my garage. Hello.
Hello from my kitchen table. How are y'all doing?
So yes, this is our third quarantined episode. I don't know how many more of these we'll have. I think we should have a return to normalcy as far as the actual workplace goes in the not too distant future. But until then, yes, this is the hand that we've been dealt. I'm recording from my bed. Devin is in his garage, and Chris is in front of all his Golden State Warriors championship memorabilia. Last week we debuted our sports year interview series, just going back and recapping the abbreviated athletics year for all of our markets. We knocked out Plano, Rowlett, and Lake City. So if you care about us, offering up takes on how the athletic years went for those markets, check that episode out. Today we've got three more that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk some Carrollton, some Coppell, and some Mesquite. So why waste time, guys? Let's just jump right in. Chris, let's talk Coppell, traditionally one of the more well-rounded overall athletic programs in our coverage area. It's usually kind of springtime is kind of a nice time to shine for Coppell, especially when it gets into soccer season and baseball and whatnot. So obviously did not get to see that happen this year because of the pandemic and whatnot. So nevertheless, though, from the what we do know about what happened with Coppell athletics, just what kind of jumped off the page to you, Chris, when you were thinking back on this?
So you look back at, I think you hit the nail on the head, very well-rounded. Obviously, the winter sports, you look at it, basketball, boys basketball especially, had a great year. They just got that tough draw in the second round of the playoffs where they got to play the number 11 team in the state. But then soccer's too. I mean, you just got to be feeling for those teams right now because girls soccer was rated as one of the best teams in the country. Their chances at the postseason are cut short. Girls like Lauren Collette, Haley Roberson can't finish their high school careers like they wanted to. You look at boys soccer, won 6 straight games. They were out of the playoffs. It looked like they were going to kind of end that streak of 22 straight playoff runs at 22. They're way out of the playoff picture. They get hot. They make a few changes. They win 6 straight. They jump into second place in that district. And I think if the season would have kept going, I don't think anybody would have wanted to play that boys soccer team at Coppell. Baseball was just starting to kind of find a rhythm under Ryan Howard, the previous head coach at Lake Dallas. They had won 3 in a row before the break. The same with softball under Mike Dyson this year. They were really hitting their stride before that break as well. They won 3 in a row. So there's just pretty much every Coppell program you could think of, there was that feeling of what could we have done, because there were state titles probably on most people's minds. And then you go to track. They had some kids break school records. You had a freshman. Obviously, she still got a few more years to break a national record. You got one freshman girl, Skylar Schuler, 13-foot pole vaulter as a freshman in high school. It was kind of ridiculous. She's getting close to the national record. So I was hoping to see some kinds of records, some kind of state meet wins in her future this year, but I guess she'll have to wait another year. But I'm sure that we'll see someone like her claim the throne in the state pretty soon.
Yeah, I was curious to see how baseball season was going to go for Coppell. Just thinking of what that program traditionally has. I mean, that's they've usually got one of the deeper, more talented lineups that you'll find in the area. And just looking back over their playoff history, that was kind of the thing. Is they always were a team that was, they entered the year with basically with state tournament or bust expectations. They had only been past the third round of the playoffs one time since 2007. So if with them bringing in Ryan Howard from Lake Dallas and a chance to, kind of usher in a kind of a new era of Coppell baseball, I wanted to see if just the odds are that they could have, maybe built off of the, kind of the talent that program traditionally has a bit more than they had in the past. And yes, with the Sockers, I mean, yeah, you're always, feeling bad for the, especially with just how talented that district was and how it felt like any team in that district could have gotten hot at the right time in the playoffs with as closely contested as all those matches were. As far as things kind of from the first half before you got here, Chris, that I had jotted down, with the volleyball team, they've actually got one of the more impressive playoff streaks just in the entire state right now. They qualified for the postseason for the 21st consecutive season this year. They made it as a 4 seed, though, which means you're going to draw a district champion. And in in this case, that district champion wound up being the eventual state champion and the #1 ranked team in the nation, Trophy Club Byron Nelson. So that went about as one might expect. But then you have over with football. I mean, they did have a bit of a rough go in football. They missed the playoffs for just the second time since 2007. Just the collective strength of Louisville ISD was just a little bit too much there. And then you look at some of the close losses they had in district. An 8-point loss to Hebron. They took the eventual district champion Marcus to double overtime, lost that one by 8 points as well. Oddly enough, probably one of the most notable moments from that season though was them pushing Allen right down to the wire. And albeit a shorthanded Allen team, they were missing their quarterback Raylan Sharp for that game, their non-district finale. But that was a game that was tied heading into the final couple minutes. Allen got a late touchdown, I believe, from Jordan Johnson, and they ended up winning that game just 28-21. So Coppell, which ironically enough was the last team to defeat Allen in the regular season, all the way back in 2012. Could have been a very nice sense of going full circle there of sorts. But that was at least some of the notable moments from Coppell's season. And then you had the girls cross country team, which had won a state championship the year before. They ended up taking 4th overall. So. Again, the consistency, in some respects for Coppell, but yes, when you get to the, those programs in the spring and whatnot, that's really where that program kind of ramps its game up a level. So shame to see that they were, kind of denied that opportunity. Let's see, Devin, we can talk a little bit of Mesquite. So, kind of on that same note, obviously, when you look back at the year that was, whether it was the 6A schools in Mesquite ISD or the 5A level, what was kind of the first thing that jumped to mind as far as kind of the highlight moments of the school year that was in Mesquite?
Well, and I'm going to kind of break this into what was finished off and then what kind of lied ahead. It was one of those years, especially in the fall, where the Mesquite ISD programs were just kind of overshadowed, so to speak, just because of some of their district mates. I mean, in football, Rockwall had that incredible season where they make it to the state semifinals. Longview's always going to garner its share of attention. McKinney North was having a record-breaking year at 7-5A Division I. So while there were some good moments, I mean, Mesquite had a nice season. Mesquite was a fun team to watch with Dylan Hiller McGill at quarterback, Ladarius Turner at running back, and Darian Smith on the outside. They thumped Colleen Shoemaker in that first round, 52-6. For their first playoff win since 2012. But the road came to an end in the next round against Prosper, so it didn't open a lot of eyes around the state. It was a nice local story. Same with Poteet. I think Poteet kind of wonders what might have been if Seth McGowan had been healthy all year long. Their outstanding running back that's signed with Oklahoma. But they made it back to the playoffs. But again, they go out in the first round, so it just didn't generate a lot of buzz. Horn had its 11-year streak of playoff appearances snapped. Sunnyvale had a nice little run. They went three rounds deep before losing to Pleasant Grove. No shame in that. Pleasant Grove won every game by at least 2 touchdowns on its way to the state championship. But it's crazy to think about now. But Jeff Fleener over at Mesquite is the dean of Mesquite ISD football coaches now. You've had so much turnover here, and he's been there since 2017. He's going into his 4th year, but they've had so much turnover with Poteet and Horn breaking in new football coaches this past year, and obviously West Mesquite, hiring Frank Sandoval in the offseason. So, it takes a while to get those systems into place. I think you saw it with the kind of gradual turnaround that Coach Fleener's been able to do with Mesquite, where they started off really, really tough, but then we're a playoff team this past year. So really interested to see what those programs do in the future once you've got a couple, your own freshman class under your belt and your system in place. But volleyball is kind of a similar story. Horn made it for the 7th straight year. Poteet was back in the playoffs, but again, you're kind of overshadowed there by the 2 Rockwall programs and the 2 Forney programs, who are just they're good across the board. Moving into basketball, I thought basketball was one of the best stories locally. And that was the Horn boys. It comes down to the final day of the regular season. They have to play Rockwall, a traditionally tough program, and Horn is able to win first outright district championship in school history. And that's a team, that's a program that's had some good talent, some NBA talent. If you go back to even when Quincy AC was playing back there, but they never were able to win a district title. In fact, they hadn't had a lot of success in the playoffs. They advanced to the 3rd round this year. That's the first time since 2009 and just the 2nd time ever. So, the Horn boys basketball team was certainly one of the bright spots in terms of hoop season. Horn made it for the 18th year in a row I mean, that's no small achievement, but they did lose in the first round. They got some really talented players coming back with Jasmine Shavers and Viancia Jackson. So they'll be well equipped to make that 19 in a row next year. And then in 13-5A, when you talk basketball and you're in the same district as Lancaster, that's kind of where the conversation begins and unfortunately sometimes ends. Poteet and West Mesquite were able to make the boys basketball playoffs, for the first time, both in the same season since 2016, but lost in the first round. Same thing with Poteet girls. And then the Sunnyvale girls are, a team that's a former state champion, a recent state champion. They made it to the playoffs for the 10th year in a row, 4th district title in a row, made it to the third round. It's not their ultimate goal, but it was still a nice season.
So then if you look at I guess, going forward, though, I guess as far as the spring sports are concerned, like, what do you feel like MISD could have been capable of this?
Yeah, that's in soccer in particular, since we just really didn't have a feel for what was going to happen, baseball, softball, and whatnot. There were some nice stories. Mesquite was 1 point up on Longview in boys 11-6A boys soccer heading into the final week. Poteet had already clinched in the girls, 24 years in a row for them. That's a Mesquite ISD record for any sport. The Poteet boys were in it. West Mesquite girls had a chance to make it for the first time since 2013. They were right there in the hunt. But I think the one team that jumps out is the West Mesquite boys. I mean, there's times when we'll be covering a team, especially when we jump so late into the mix in soccer, and then you start looking at, this is a solid little team. And then you kind of look at the roster and go, wow, these kids are all sophomores and they're all juniors. And that's kind of what I saw last, 2 years ago with West Mesquite boys. A program that they had a relatively new coach in Jeremiah Villarreal. But you look at the all-district team last year, they had 10 players named to the first team, and 9 of those were coming back. That was including Carlos Lara, the MVP, Junior Saavedra, Offset Player of the Year, one of the best scorers in the area. Edgar Lopez and Jarius Robledo were both superlative award winners in the midfield. And, this was a West Mesquite team that was living up to the hype. I mean, they were ranked number 4 in the Tasco Region 2 poll. Now, granted, when you're talking, Region 2 in soccer, you got the Frisco groups to contend with, and that certainly was going to be an easy path through the playoffs. But I do think this West Mesquite team had the potential to go on a really, really strong run. And, it's not exactly a hotbed for, soccer talent in terms of success winning state championships, but they have had their teams over the years. Poteet's been able to make a couple of runs, and I really think West Mesquite had that in the cards for them. Really disappointed they didn't have a chance to play it out on the field.
That was kind of where I landed when I was thinking back for Carrollton, at least, as far as teams that could have been capable of doing some really, really strong things in the postseason. I'll get to that in a bit, though, just as far as kind of an overview, though, on what happened in Carrollton athletics for the school year that was. Obviously, for over the years, it's always been about Hebron. Hebron's about as credentialed an athletic program as it gets out of that city. They're actually one of the few schools last year that made the playoffs in all 8 bracket sports, including 9 if you want to extend it out to team tennis. I mean, Hebron is just oozes consistency year in, year out. You did see some of that again, this year. They did have that playoff streak snap, though. The boys basketball team did not make the tournament, but you did have playoff appearances in volleyball, football, girls basketball. Neither of those teams advanced out of the first round, however, but that was obviously, sometimes a symptom of where you were seeded and who you were seeded against. Football team ran up against Denton Geyer, who winds up being the state runner-up in 6A Division II. The girls basketball team runs into Geyer, who was ranked top 10 in the state at the time. Volleyball team, I believe they ran into Geyer as well. That Geyer team went on to be, I guess they advanced all the way to the regional finals. So, getting bounced by some pretty elite competition. But then you look at the year for Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD, and football was what it was and whatnot. But beyond that, actually a pretty solid year on the whole for CFB ISD. Creekview Volleyball made the playoffs, as did RL Turner. They both went 2 rounds deep. Newman Smith, we'll get to them, in a little bit, but obviously their boys basketball team had its best season ever. The Creekview girls basketball team made the playoffs. Newman Smith's girls basketball team made the playoffs and made the second round. So, and then that's all to lead up to, I guess, the kind of the MVP, so to speak, of this year. It was not the undefeated regular season, Newman Smith boys basketball team. It was, drum roll, the Creekview wrestling team. That's right. Yes, the Creekview wrestling team, they had their best ever finish at state. Their boys team placed third overall. Even before this season, they had never so much as had multiple kids make it to the championship match in a single year. They had 3 kids accomplish that feat, this season, and they had 2 of them wind up winning state championships. Conrad Hendrickson, just a sophomore, Mason Ding, a junior, they ended up winning state titles. Then you had Kobe Eichenhorst. He was a runner-up in his weight class. So yes, Creekview just every conceivable accolade that they just shattered the history books as far as their wrestling program went this year. Had their best season ever. It was actually a solid overall state meet for CFB ISD in general. Newman Smith and Earl Turner each had a wrestler crack the top 5 on the whole for that meet. So yes, wrestling of all sports was the knight in shining armor for CFB ISD this year. But obviously, then yes, you look at some of the other notable moments in Carrollton athletics. Obviously, that Newman Smith boys basketball team though was pretty memorable in its own right. Just to go undefeated in the regular season, they went 27-0 prior to the playoffs. One of, I believe, only maybe I think 3 or 4 boys basketball teams in the entire state, they were able to complete a perfect regular season. They were able to extend that record to 29-0 before running into a pretty surging Kimball squad, which Kimball's firepower certainly shined there in that regional quarterfinal. But it was Newman Smith's first 3-round playoff run since 2006, which matched the deepest run in program history. And just the way that team conducted its business, they averaged more than 80 points per game, which that's really high for the high school level. They had 4 games of at least 100 points scored. Their average margin to victory across those 29 victories, right around 27 points. So, a lot of times, they were just absolutely laying waste to teams, whether it was, the district MVP, Jaron Cook, their star big man, Damani Villarreal, who actually just committed to Southwest Assemblies of God last week to continue his basketball career into college. You had Thibaut Tagnon, who was, who had a bit of an injury to work through at the start of the year and accepted the role of 6th man for that team, wound up being our all-area 6th man of the year. Had a spectacular season. He was the 3rd leading scorer, 3rd in minutes on the team. So really just a 6th man in title only, kind of like Manu Ginobili with the Spurs was, I think, what I likened it to in my all-area capsule. You had Bobby Smith, who had a huge year for them. Such a deep team. Hands down the best team in program history there. So yes, Newman Smith boys basketball, spectacular season in hindsight. And then as far as the spring sports went, kind of what could have been, there were 2 teams that jumped out to me, and they were both soccer related. So we talked about kind of in the same vein as Coppell, as far as if you made the playoffs out of 6A, you had a decent shot at making some noise in the postseason. If you just weave your way past that first round and that matchup with whoever you got from 5-6A, because that was a really quality division too. But you look at, especially on the girls' side, and the Hebron girls are my first team of note. With Flower Mound, even though Flower Mound had run away with the district title, then you had Marcus, Coppell, Hebron. They had all clinched playoff spots, and we're all within a pretty comparable distance of each other. I believe when the season ended, Hebron was tied for 3rd place with Coppell, but Hebron was one of those teams that was able to strike a draw with Flower Mound in the second half of district. And then you just saw, based on just kind of the comparable scores between those top 4 teams, that there really wasn't a whole lot separating any of them, and that especially when you get to the playoffs and you start bringing in shootouts into the equation and whatnot, and all of a sudden you can't play for ties anymore. How you could have seen a number of upsets spring, and Hebron's a team that has certainly had a pretty credentialed soccer tradition in the past, and who knows if they could have gotten hot and gone on one of those runs to the regional tournament and whatnot. And the same thing with, oddly enough, RL Turner. That's again, their soccer program has been one of the more consistent among CFB ISD. They were in line to make the playoffs for a 4th consecutive year. They closed the season, I believe. Let's see what I have written down. They lost only 1 of their final 8 matches. They were ranked in the top 10 of their region by Tasco, which is no small feat, again, considering the number of Frisco schools that also occupy that region. So, that's a program that's coming off its 2nd deepest playoff run ever last season. They went to the 3rd round and were in position to potentially make some more noise this postseason. So, those were 2 teams that jumped out as far as ones that potentially could have really, gone on to do some special things this postseason if they had in fact been given the chance to do so. Let's see, though, as far as stuff in Carrollton, though, that's just about it as far as Jefferson. Like I said, pretty strong overall year, though, for CFB ISD. And they're transitioning as far as the non-football sports. Texas into a pretty favorable district going forward. So again, we could could just be getting started as far as a nice little brief resurgence there for CFB ISD, who's often been at the brunt of being in a pretty tough district of their own. Let's see. Before we get out of here, I did want to just check and see from you guys. This was the first weekend as part of kind of the gradual reopening of Texas, as far as restaurants and the like kind of being eased back. Did you guys take advantage of any of that this past weekend, or did you just kind of maintain this quarantine lifestyle that we've all been so acclimated to for the past 6 weeks?
I got out more to explore, more as a curiosity thing than anything else. You got to remember we have 4 kids here, and so it makes things difficult to get a table anyway when there's no restrictions. So we didn't want, didn't really know how it's going to be handled. I popped into a couple chains, popped into a couple local places. I don't think it didn't seem like that many people were taking advantage of that. Now going to the parks and driving by some of these, there's pickup basketball games going on at every park around that I drove by. Wow. I know, which is direct defiance, I guess, of what you're supposed to be doing. But a lot of people out just taking walks, playing disc golf, just getting outside. And granted, it helped. It was a beautiful weekend, but more so because I drive by pretty much every day on a lot of these places. Again, most of the restaurants, it seemed like to me, were still taking it very, very cautious in terms of most of them weren't even opening their dining room. I know some did, but I don't know. How about y'all?
I think here maybe it's a little bit different. I think people still here, I haven't seen as many people go out. I think today was probably the first day when I was just walking outside where I saw a couple more people outside. But restaurants, I think kind of what Devin said, people are still being cautious. I'm still going to be cautious with that until I know that these steps are going to work, because honestly, I have no idea. I'm no expert, so I just want to find out from them that it will be good. But Whataburger's been offering curbside pickup, and Whataburger is like a mile from here, so I got the curbside pickup there. Finesse my way to avoid that hour drive-through line and waited 2 minutes for curbside pickup. So, if anyone wants Whataburger for that, do that. But other than that, still probably quarantining until I know it's safer. I'm not going to just go out and play pickup basketball right now. I don't think that's what I should be doing. But give me another month, and I might have to be playing basketball because I might get a little stir crazy inside. But
Chris, had you tried Whataburger at all prior to moving here? Because I know you've only been in Texas for just a few months.
So when I was in Laredo, Whataburger was probably 500 feet from my apartment, so I could pretty much go there anytime I wanted.
There you go.
And of course, now the mile drive here instead of the 500 feet in Laredo is a long drive to get Whataburger. But I'd been in Texas before for West Virginia games, playing down here, covering those in college. So I've been to Whataburger before, but now I have it on a consistent basis. And yeah, it's pretty special. I had that sweet and spicy bacon burger on Texas toast on Friday. Got that Dr. Pepper shake with it. That was good.
All right, so you're a West Coast guy, so I think you know where this is headed. Where do you stand on the In-N-Out Whataburger debate?
I know where this is going. I'm going to be honest with you. Texas In-N-Outs are not good.
Okay.
They're honestly, though, at least the one here, they're not putting the same care into it. They don't really care. The California ones, they put a lot of care into it, kind of like Texas with Whataburger puts a lot of care into it. Like, I've been to Oklahoma City. The Whataburger there was good, but it pales in comparison to the ones here. Whataburger's got more diversity on the menu, and obviously I love Texas toast. You give me Texas toast with anything, I will devour that. But In-N-Out's quality is just so good. And I'm a California guy. I feel like I can't go against In-N-Out, but I live in Texas now, and I feel like I can't go against Whataburger. So I'm kind of in two worlds right now with that. But Whataburger's starting to take control. I'm going to be honest with you.
Give it time.
Yeah, it's getting a little ugly.
Let's see. On my end, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm not even someone who gets out a ton to begin with, and especially given how sensitive a lot of this still is. I mean, I was in no rush to to get out and sit in a restaurant and do anything of that sort. I mean, I'm perfectly content. Just a nice weekend indoors, being lazy and whatnot, with as grueling as this job can be each week for us. So nevertheless, though, I am curious though what you did mention though, Devin, about the pickup basketball games you're doing, because I've decided that's how long I'm keeping this going. Until the next time I can set foot on a basketball court and play an actual pickup game, I'm keeping my quarantine beard going at least until that long, and we'll see. Who knows? Maybe longer. See how long it gets.
It gets hot. Trust me, as someone who's grown a beard out before in the summer, it gets hot. Good morning. It's already hot, and haven't even shaved this very often.
But I'm still finding like there's still a park that is actually that is out in the Farmers Branch area that I am swinging by every few days or so. Again, it's not a busy one or anything. So as far as the basketball courts there, no, but maybe one person might be there. But just so I can get some shots up and just try to stay somewhat active and whatnot during this because yeah, like I know, I guess the next phase of this is they're supposed to incorporate gyms into this, but that'll, be with, you'll have to maintain social distancing and whatnot. So naturally, like, you're not going to be able to play pickup basketball or anything like that in gym.
Now, here's my question with the gyms reopening too, because obviously you got to maintain the social distancing, you got to clean up the machines, but you also got to make sure people are cleaning up those plates, like the 45-pound plates, because I've seen people clean machines all the time, but I don't think I've ever seen one person ever clean a weight.
Me neither.
We got to make sure now people do that too, because that's not a habit. Even for some people, it was a habit to clean machines, but it was never a habit to clean a weight.
Yeah, usually I kind of bypass the weight room and just head right to the basketball courts. And I can't imagine though, I guess, how long after, after gyms open up, when they'll finally lift the restrictions to where people will even feel comfortable doing something like that. I'm not surprised that, Devin, like you said, people are already, getting stir crazy and out there playing pickup basketball games and whatnot. But yes, that's ultimately the finish line for this quarantine for me, as far as any sort of leisurely activities go and whatnot. But otherwise,
that's why you call some of your local basketball coaches that you cover and say, "Hey, coach, if you're ever swinging by the office to get some stuff taken care of, if you want to leave the door open, I'm gonna go in and shoot for a couple hours while you do your business, and you'll have the whole gym to yourself."
That wouldn't be a bad idea, actually. I could use a nice little air-conditioned gym to shoot around in versus the beating 8 a.m. sun. Let's see. All right, yeah. So just curious how you guys are kind of acclimating as we slowly inch our way back towards normalcy. But yes, another episode where we play the look back game as far as talking about the year that was for a handful of our markets. We have, I believe, 8 left. So these next couple episodes will touch on 4 markets, and yes, we'll pick up around the same time next week, and we'll be back with another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Chris, Devin, I appreciate you guys for tagging along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, folks, you enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later.